It's funny how in the world of carry guns, things often go full circle. Well, today, we're going to be comparing my current carry gun to my original compact carry gun. Let's get to work. Hey guys, Work here. Welcome back to Work the Trigger. So today we're going to be doing a comparison between the M&P 2.0 compact with the straight trigger and the P10c. As I said about the M&P, it was actually my first compact carry gun. Now, I had carried a couple of guns before that, made the common error of getting a Ruger LCP, the original one, upgraded to like an LC9, and then went to a Smith & Wesson Shield, but my first actual double-stack compact carry gun was the original Smith & Wesson M&P compact. Now, the M&P compact back then was a 12-round magazine, much closer to like a subcompact gun, but the downsides of that gun still rang pretty true. I actually picked up a full-size version later on, and the downsides of the original M&P were just too great to be able to continue carrying it over other guns. As most defensive carrying firearms owners go, my progression eventually led to what I carry now, which is the P10c. Now, I say this is what I carry now, but let's admit it, I jump back and forth a lot, but this is kind of my default carry gun. If I'm just grabbing a gun to go and I'm not testing something, it's going to be this guy. So how do these two guns compare to each other? First up, let's throw out some numbers and some what you gets. Let's start with the M&P. So the M&P can be had for upper 500s to about $650. $650 being pretty much on the high end, $600 being the average. What you get is 2 metal magazines, the gun, and an assortment of optics plates because this is an optics ready model. And unlike most other guns in this price range, you get a cardboard box. And of course the assorted accoutrement. Now the CZ price-wise comes in upper 500s to $650. $650 being the high end that you usually don't see, $600 again being about the average. So these guns price-wise come in almost identically. With the CZ, what you get is, again, 2 metal magazines, no optics plates, but you do get the expected hard case for a $600 gun, and again, the assorted junk in there. The specs on these two guns are extremely similar. First up, the P10c. The P10c in its stock form with magazine comes in at 1 pound, 10.6 ounces. We got a barrel length of 4.02 inches, a length of 7.3 inches, a width of 1.26 inches, and a height of 5.2 inches. Jumping over to the M&P now, the M&P comes in at 1 pound, 9.6 ounces, so an ounce less on the M&P, with a 4-inch barrel, 7.25 inch overall length, 1.2 inches overall width, and a 5-inch overall height, making the M&P 50 thousandths shorter, 60 thousandths narrower, and almost a 1/4 inch shorter on the height. Now, in use, you're not really going to notice any of those except the height. That extra 0.2 inches on the CZ does give you a little bit better grip, but also makes it a little bit more difficult to conceal. Now let's talk a little bit about the features of each one of these guns. So the M&P working from the bottom up. We've got our standard metal mags with a decent base plate and a little bit of chamfering down here to assist in stripping that mag. The grip texturing is really, really nice. It's relatively aggressive. It's not going to be for hands that don't like semi-aggressive grip texturing, but it's less abrasive than like a RTF2 on a Glock Gen 3 or even the P10Cs. And I appreciate how much of that grip texturing there is on here. This grip has very little flat surface down in the parts where it actually matters. It has a pretty flat back strap here that puts a lot of nice pressure back on your palm. The beaver tail is relatively shallow, however, which keeps you from choking up on it quite as much as I'd like. It does keep your hand down and out of the way of slide bite, but I generally like somewhere in the middle there. And a deeper beaver tail typically allows for a quicker, more positive grip on the draw. Up front, you have a little bit of an undercut here, not a whole lot, but it's enough to be able to get kind of a pinch between the beaver tail here and your middle finger. The mag release has some nice bolstering around it, which should keep you from inadvertently pressing it. The trigger guard itself is kind of a median size. You could get a finger with a glove in it, but you're not going to be able to get like puffy gloves in it. Now let's talk about the trigger a little bit. So the trigger is the biggest improvement on this particular version over the last 2.0 version, which still had that grip texturing and the modifications there. But this trigger is a drastic improvement over the triggers that we've seen in the M&P line thus far, which have traditionally been the cantilever trigger, the 2-piece trigger. These have the more traditional safety tab in the middle, which is going to get rid of a little bit of that movement in the trigger and give you a more consistent trigger pull. Let's talk about the trigger pull profile now. So you've got the safety tab take up. Now this safety tab is actually a relatively wide safety tab. It's going to be nice because it's not going to put a lot of pressure against your finger here, and it's going to keep it relatively comfortable in shooting. Once you take that take up on, you're going to press back, and that travel there is about a 1/4 inch, but it's a gritty 1/4 inch. You can feel pretty much every thousandth of that movement in there, and a lot of that's based on the plastic to plastic contact of this trigger shoe. Now once we take that up, we're going to hit a relatively hard wall, and that wall, it actually doesn't have a lot of creep to it. The reset is right back out just past that wall, then you get another 1/16 to 1/8 of an inch of creep back onto the wall, and hitting the brake. Our trigger pull weight for the M&P here is about 4.75 pounds. I did have one deviated pull up near 5 pounds, but for the majority of them, we were at 4.75 pounds. So again, the trigger on this one is by far the biggest upgrade, and it makes it a viable gun. The trigger was my biggest complaint about the first gen. The grip texturing was also pretty bad. The grip shape wasn't as refined, but the trigger especially, and with this model, they have improved all of that. Moving up from the trigger, we do have an ambidextrous slide stop slide release, Smith & Wesson's stainless steel slide with what I think are some really good serrations. Now, they only work really in the back direction. They're not that great for like pushing forward, but you really shouldn't be pushing serrations forward anyway. But in the backwards motion, they get really grippy, and I really appreciate the fact that they're both streamlined and functional. Now, up from that is the optics cut. The optics cut on the M&P is, like the majority of other optics cuts, it's a generic base with a plate system. Now, the plates that they use are plastic plates. I don't know how I feel about that, but they are heavily bossed into the slide and have bosses for the optic itself. They also have screws that have a little bit of bossing on them to be able to thicken up the cross sections where you would end up seeing a little bit of that bending torque on slide reciprocation. Again, I don't really know how I feel about the plastic plates. I've seen success with them. I've seen failures with them, not necessarily with the M&Ps, just in general. There's a couple of guns that use the plastic plate system. I would much rather have metal plates, and when I do put an optic on this gun, I will get probably an aftermarket plate. I don't want to run the risk of having the plastic plates. That being said, very similar to a lot of the other guns that come optics ready, the stock system will be adequate for a lot of people. I run more rounds through my guns, I am more abusive to my guns than the majority of people. So the plastic plates, like other guns, would probably be okay for most people. Personally, I would upgrade to a metal plate. Now, the last thing on the M&P that I want to talk about are the sights. Unlike what I can think of as every other $600 optics ready gun, even $650 optics ready gun, the M&P comes with co-witnessing height sights, making the M&P the only truly optics ready gun for that price range. To be an optics ready self-defense gun, you need backup sights because optics do fail, and having that secondary sighting system is kind of a mandatory thing. And the fact that the M&P comes with them stock for this price range is pretty freaking awesome. All in all, for its price, the M&P is really well optioned out. Now let's talk about the CZ. So the CZ again has your traditional metal mags. Both of these guns do have 15 round magazines. The grip on the CZ is a combination of worse and better than the M&P. I don't like the grip texturing as much on the CZ here. Not necessarily the feel and the grippiness, but I don't like how much of the grip it covers. I wish that there was more of it. That being said, the grip shape on the CZ is more conducive to a positive grip. It has a slightly deeper beaver tail here, which allows you to get a lot higher on the gun to get your hand up even closer to the barrel center line. Backstrap bulge back here also forces your hand up and in, basically locking that grip in either quicker or faster, depending on how you want to think about it, into the gun. Now, the other thing that I don't like about the grip on the CZ here is the length of pull on the P10 series is relatively shallow compared to a lot of other guns, which wouldn't be a problem if their backstrap system allowed for an increase in length of pull. It doesn't. All it does is changes this bulge back here, which more changes the grip angle versus changing the size of hand that functions well with it. I have medium-sized hands. Both of these guns work excellent for me. They are more comfortable than, say, a Glock 19, but once you shoot all of these guns, you find out that comfort really doesn't matter a whole lot in shootability. I will say that the CZ does seat a grip a little bit easier on the draw, meaning my draws are more consistently quick. Not that the M&P isn't consistently quick, and it would probably be even quicker if I carried it more, but I just find getting a positive grip on the CZ here a little bit easier. Now, the mag release on the CZ does not have any bolstering around it. I haven't had any problems with inadvertently pushing it, but if your two-handed grip gives you a strong forward weak hand grip, you might inadvertently press that mag release and drop a mag. Now, the trigger on the P10 is one of my top 5, probably top 2 to 3 triggers in a striker fire gun. I think this trigger is just pretty damn good. I've heard a little bit of varying opinion on the quality of triggers that people have gotten in a P10. I own quite a few, and I have played with even more, and I've not felt one as bad as some people say that they've felt them. But that doesn't mean that there aren't outliers out there with triggers that are subpar to what I personally have experienced, but even the subpar triggers that they're explaining are still a little bit better than the M&P. The M&P trigger is miles better than the original trigger, but it still has a lot of grit in that pull, and it does still have some pretty plasticky feeling components. Now, the components in the P10 trigger are also plastic, but the plastic that they use seems to be either better tolerance to the housing around it, or just a finer finish on it that gets rid of that grippy feeling. let's talk a little bit about trigger pull profile. So the P10 trigger has, again, that safety tab. Now the safety tab on the P10 is a much narrower safety tab, meaning that it could agitate your finger if you fire this gun a long time. I've not had that problem, but it is a possibility. After we press that back, we've got about 1/4 of an inch of overall travel, maybe a little bit over, and then we hit a hard wall. And that hard wall has virtually no creep until the break. Now after that break, the reset, we come back out, and we hear that reset. It's a relatively positive reset, pushes your finger pretty well, but that reset is right on that wall. You have no slack after that reset to come back if you don't allow it to push your finger out, and then you're right back on that wall for that final press. Now the trigger pull on the P10c here is 4.75-ish pounds. That's right, the weight of these two trigger pulls is identical. Now the P10c was a little bit more consistent. I didn't have an outlier, but still both of these guns are rating right about 4.75 pounds. Working up from there, we do have, again, ambidextrous slide stop slide releases. The slide stop slide releases on the P10 here are a little bit more low profile than on the M&P. The M&P sticks out a little bit. The P10 is a little bit more flush to the gun. Now the CZ has an indexing pattern up here on the frame. The M&P does not. I did find that in shooting, my front thumb moved around a lot more on the M&P than it does on the P10c. That might be how the M&P shoots. It might be that subtle design change. But I do feel that my support hand thumb floats around a little bit more on the M&P. Up from that are CZ's serrations. I really like CZ's serrations. They're wide enough and deep enough to be really useful, but shallow enough and thin enough that they're not like weird looking. Like the Beretta APX, that gun just looks off to me. The CZs are much more usable. I do think that they're more usable than the M&Ps, but they are also a little bit less subtle than the M&Ps. And they're definitely less stylized than the M&Ps. That scallop cut on the M&P is just cool. Now, up from that is the CZ optics system. So I have a big complaint with the CZ optics system, and contrary to some of my other complaints, it's not the system itself. I actually think the system is pretty good. The M&P has a lug system. It's got a couple of big lugs that integrate into the plate. The CZ system has a cross-style system, which locks that plate down in pretty much the same motions, and the plate system on the CZ is metal. The problem is that it doesn't come with them. So this, claiming to be an optics-ready gun, is a little bit of a misnomer. It's more of like an optics-suggested gun. You can buy an optic for it, you can put it on there, but you don't have what you need out of the box. You do have to buy that plate, either from CZ, from CZ Custom, from Cajun Gunworks, from C&H, from somewhere. Now the stock CZ plates from CZ USA I actually really like, and I really wish that they would put those in the boxes, but they don't, which drastically reduces the overall value that you're getting with this gun. You're not getting a gun that is optics ready, unlike with the M&P, unlike with Glock, unlike with so many other guns. This gun isn't ready, and unlike with something like the PDP, where they do give you a plate, you just have to let them know which one you want, CZ doesn't have that either. You have to pay for the plate. So on top of the $600 that you're buying the gun for, now you gotta spend $35 plus shipping on a plate. I really wish that they would at least add an RMR plate in there, since that's what the majority of the footprint that people are gonna be using on these is, but they don't, and that frustrates me. And last, the sights on the CZ here. So I actually think the sights on the CZ here are a little bit better than the M&P for like just iron sights, if you're just wanting a gun with iron sights. These are a little bit better. They got a little bit higher vis front, they got a blacked out rear. The M&P's running 3-dot white sights. Profile on the M&P sights are really good, but I think the usability on the CZ sights and the quickness are just a little bit better. However, they are not co-witnessing height sights, so if you get an optic for this gun, you then also have to get sights, further reducing the value of this gun. So that's both of these guns by the numbers. Let's head out to the range now and see how they shoot.
Okay guys, so we're out here on the range now with the M&P 2.0 and the CZ P10c. Let's go ahead and shoot a mag through each one of these. We'll talk a little bit about the shooting profiles. First up is the M&P. So the M&P 2.0 is a significantly better gun than the M&P 1.0. The recoil is about the same, but the grip texturing is significantly improved, and what that does is that allows you to keep a better hold on the gun. It lets you be able to control it a little bit better. The grip profile on the M&P is really nice. It's got just enough bulge in the back to be able to seat your hand and push it up into the back strap, but not too much as to like change the grip angle or something weird like that. The new trigger on the M&P 2.0 is what I think is the biggest upgrade from the past 2.0. Getting rid of that hinge trigger has really allowed for a more consistent trigger pull throughout the trigger movement. The sights in the M&P 2.0 are pretty good. They're really good profiles. I don't like that they're 3-dot, but they are co-witness height, which is really nice. And the profile with the thin front and the wider gap in the back really allows for a quick acquisition despite them being just 3-dot sights. Like a lot of the pistols with this form factor on these compacts, it just shoots really nice. It's a nice smooth recoil, it's predictable, and it's quick to get back on target. Let's go ahead and shoot the P10c now, and we'll go over its shooting profile a little bit. Okay, didn't lock back. So the shooting profile of the P10 is actually a little bit smoother than the M&P. The grip texturing on the P10 isn't quite as good as the M&P's is. It's still really grippy, but I don't feel like it covers as much space, and it just doesn't grip as much. But the P10's got a really deep beaver tail up here, which really seats your hand, and it's got that bulge in there just enough to be able to seat your hand nice and up high, giving you a good grip on the gun to be able to really manage that recoil, and the recoil is less in the first place anyway. The sights on the P10, I both like more and less. They're better sights than the M&P has, but they're not co-witness sights. So when you put a dot on the P10 here, you have to get new sights to be able to use them. The M&P, you could still use those sights. They're just not quite as good iron sights. So the P10 is more like optic suggested, and the M&P is truly optic ready. The trigger on the P10 is just so much better than the majority of its competition that it really does assist with a really quick follow-up and quick back on that trigger. Next up, let's go ahead and take the two guns. We'll go ahead and shoot a mag through each, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna take a couple shots through each one to be able to really compare how each one of the guns shoots. Then we'll come back and we'll talk about those differences. Shoot the M&P first, we'll go to the P10 next. Okay, so shoot these two guns side by side. It is evident that the P10's grip geometry is just a little bit better. The P10 definitely has a longer grip, meaning it's going to print a little bit more, but it's also got a significantly deeper beaver tail, and it forces your hand up there into what I would consider a more positive grip. When you grab the P10, your grip is, you're forced up into a better grip than with the M&P. The M&P just leaves a little bit more wiggle room for that subpar grip, meaning that when you're trying to draw really quick, it's going to be a little bit more difficult, or you're going to have to focus a little bit more to get the proper grip with the M&P than you will with the P10. But the P10 is going to print a little bit more because you do have a little bit longer of a grip. And that's also evident in what I feel is a little bit quicker shooting with the P10. Now, the caveat, I do carry the P10. I've got a lot more rounds through the P10 than I've got through the M&P. So there is that, but I just feel more confident when I'm really quickly gripping the P10 than with the M&P. But I'll tell you, before M&P came out with this new trigger, these two wouldn't have even been in the same ballpark as far as that goes. Next up, let's go ahead and do a time trial between the two. We've got two targets out there. I've got a steel at 10 yards and a steel at 25 yards. We're gonna take 5 shots at the steel at 10 yards and 2 shots at the steel at 25 yards. Now, the M&P sights are off a little bit. They are shooting a little bit to the left. So take that as a caveat when I'm shooting that far target. We'll talk about that a little bit when the timing comes out. But let's go ahead and send these shots down, compare these two times, and see how these two compare to each other. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with the P10. Again, we've got 5 shots on the 10 yard and 2 shots on the 25 yard. All right, so we've got a 386 with the P10. Now let's go ahead and do the M&P. Ooh. Okay, So that was a bad showing with the M&P. I got a 533 with the M&P. Last time I did this with the M&P, it was around like a 450, but that's still off from the P10. All right, so between the two of these, for me, the P10 is significantly quicker, but it may be because I've got a lot of rounds through the P10. It may also be because I think the P10 just settles a little bit easier. It shoots a little bit more linear and the recoil is a little bit less, but again, we are talking about a little bit bigger of a grip here. Let's go ahead and head back to the studio now, and we'll go ahead and give you some finishing thoughts on these.
Okay, so we've got the numbers, we know how they shoot. What do I think? I'm really pleased with where the M&P line has gotten. When the M&P first came out, they did an okay job at matching what was already on the market, but as time went by, that version just fell further and further behind. They upgraded to the 2.0, it was a good upgrade, but that trigger still lacked, especially behind where striker triggers had gotten to. Striker triggers on the market had improved so much that the original M&P hinged trigger, you could just feel that it wasn't the same quality. They've done a lot better job with this version, and I think that it's finally, again, a viable off-the-shelf self-defense gun. You don't have to change the trigger in this gun to make it viable. The CZ, the way that you buy it, is just a downright amazing gun. The trigger is better, the sights are self-defensively a little bit better, and honestly, I just think it shoots better. The ergonomics of the CZ, being able to get that little bit higher grip, and whatever other voodoo they've done in here, just makes the recoil and the recoil management a little bit better. You can see in my cadences in there that the CZ does shoot a quicker cadence with less effort than the M&P. But again, with the CZ, you gotta buy those extra parts to truly make it optics ready to be able to carry. So although I go with the CZ, and I think it is, in the end, a slightly better gun, the M&P might be a better option if you're budget constrained and you don't want to spend that extra $60 or $70 on the CZ to be able to finish it off into an optics gun. All in all, you can't go wrong with either one. Both of these guns have had perfect reliability. So that's it for this gun, guys. Thank you for watching. I hope you found this video useful. If you did, do me a favor and hit that like button down below. If you like this video and you want to see more, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button. If you like what we do and you want to help out a little bit, head over to workthetrigger.com. Over there, you're going to find coupon codes, affiliate codes, links to our merch, and a link to our 3D printed gun accessories. Thanks, guys. I appreciate every one of you. And until next time, do your research, get informed, and get to work.